Hey everyone, this is going to be a cloud native kind of week. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi everyone, it's Alan Schimmel for Techstrong and welcome to our Monday KubeCon edition of Techstrong Gang. Well, you may be saying, Shimmy looks like he's in the same background that he always is. He's not in KubeCon. Well, I'm not. Technically, KubeCon Tuesday is 0 day. KubeCon actually opens Wednesday. But by the time you're watching this, I will already be in jolly old England, London town, getting ready for our coverage on KubeCon. And we're going to kick off our KubeCon coverage today. We're going to have a lot of a heavy dose of cloud native, Cloudy with a Chance of, what's the TV show, Cloudy, or the book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs?
Meatballs, yeah.
Yes. We'll try to, well, we got a few meatballs, but
I
anyway.
think it's containers in our case. Cloudy with a chance
of containers. Absolutely. I think more than a chance of containers. There'll be containers, Captain. All right, but let me introduce you to our gang here today who's going to discuss that and more. First of all, in a new camera where we can see just really stunning. She's the chairman or CEO of Deploy Hub, open source ambassador extraordinaire, Tracy Reagan. Hi, Tracy. It is good to see you, and I really mean that. It really is a whole new Tracy.
Well, thank you for the camera. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me here on KubeCon week. And I'm so sorry I won't be in London. That would be so much fun. I have a new fan of the UK.
I enjoy the UK too. Actually, I haven't been in London since COVID, so I am looking forward. That's why I went out early. Some of our camera crew's never been there, so I think we're going to do the tower tour with the beef eaters and stuff. That's always fun. Anyway, thanks, Tracy. Joining us, we're going up from New Mexico to Colorado in our Mountain West region. The guitar man, Futura VP analyst, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, how are you?
Great to be here. And I will be in London town by the time folks are watching this as well. My second trip in 3 months. So I was there for Black Hat EU. Good to be Cloud Native Week on Techstrong Gang.
Absolutely. And Mitchell and I will be, as I mentioned, we'll be at KubeCon all week reporting from there. We'll be doing some Techstrong Gang from the show floor, I think for Thursday and Friday show. But staying out west, we're going to go to our eye in Silicon Valley. He's our Techstrong editor, John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you, man?
I'm good. I will not be in London, but I used to live there, and my daughter was born in Hammersmith in 1990. We lived in a place called Pimlico, which is right near the original Tate Museum, or Tate Gallery. Long time ago, another lifetime ago, I used to write for The Independent when I lived in London, and the Daily Telegraph, sometimes for the Times, and I miss it. So I hope you have a great time.
London is kind of eternal. It is a great town. All right, then look, we've got a new gang member. He doesn't have his colors yet, but he's someone that I've known well in the DevOps world since I started DevOps.com at least maybe 12 years ago. But as it turned out, I was telling the rest of our gang members, he grew up just a few blocks from me when we were young kids. And it's funny, two people from that we're probably the only two people in that town that are working in DevOps, JP. But anyway, he's my good friend, JP Morgenthal. And JP, I don't usually do this with our gang members, but you're new here. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I've been around the block. I've come up through the engineering ranks and built technology. I've been a serial CTO, and my proficiency has been really helping people to understand enterprise customers and enterprise users understand emerging technology, leading edge technology. So my big thing has always been to jump on the latest thing that's coming out, get hands-on with it, understand it, and then translate it for business value. And I've done that since Java Alpha. And I've written that through XML. I was Mr. XML at one point. I had a column in Internet Week and book in Charles Goldfarb series, and was an analyst, and then became CTO of an XML company. So, and I just kept riding that. It took that wave kind of just went all the way to shore. That XML became SOA, became cloud, became DevOps, became what's here now, which is AI. So I am doing that again around the artificial intelligence and generative AI world. I'm playing with these technologies as they're emerging and identifying their boundaries and explaining to people the realities and helping enterprises to adopt these technologies.
Fantastic, man. It's a pleasure to have you on here, JP.
And I will add, I also lived in London for a very short period of time, but what a time. I worked for EMI Music Worldwide, and my job was to help take the Office technology from the UK and move it to the US when they chose a US-based CEO. And so I actually lived in Abbey Road Studios.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow,
That was fun.
that sounds fun.
Yeah,
There's actually, if you look at EMI, not the album cover, because it's not on the album cover, but if you look at pictures, there's a building right next to the studio, and that is a set of apartments that was owned by EMI and Capitol Records, and it was used for executives when they're in town. But and it was nice. I had a full apartment, kitchen, everything, but I still ate all my meals and went to the pub in EMI in Abbey Road Studios.
fantastic. Very cool. Little history right there. Let it be. Okay. Hey, let's jump into our A block today. So look, this Cloud Native Week. We're kicking it off. I guess we should start with a little bit of the state of Cloud Native with KubeCon coming, the announcements are coming fast and furious. Mitch, you wanna hit some of them and comment, kick us
Yeah,
off?
I'd be happy to. In our business, we get flooded with the announcements, and a lot of them are under embargo, so some we can't talk about yet. But they're already going into KubeCon. There've been a flurry of announcements, which frankly I think is a good idea because you don't get lost in the shuffle of the mountain of announcements that happen at those conferences. But I mean, we've had Commodore is added the ability to remediate vulnerabilities that they find in Kubernetes as it experiences drift. I think we're going to hear a lot about WASM at this particular KubeCon. Just recently, Hyperlight announced that they're engaging. This was a Microsoft open source project they contributed to the CNCF. They announced they're supporting WASM within their kind of environment. It's a micro VM. It's interesting that that's kind of come up again as a technology. Cosmonic as control plane for managing WASM. Another announcement. We're going to hear about eBIF. We're going to hear a lot about the vulnerabilities of not just in our software that we create, but the sources of software that we use. ChainGuard made an announcement about now being able to look at VMs and provide VMs that are vulnerability free. But in addition to images and software, things like that. So it will be. Last year when I went to Europe, it was very much Kubernetes everywhere. That was all we talked about. Kind of other things on the side. I think this year we're going to be talking a lot about AI, of course, but also WASM and some of these other technologies that are catching fire too.
Well, I'll tell you, in my mind, I think these are going to be the big themes for this year's KubeCon. Mitch, you're right. It was Kubernetes last year, but observability was on the scene last year. Right? That was big. But here's where I think we're going to see this year. I think we're going to see AI, because we always, everywhere, it's AI all the time. But we're going to see AI managing Kubernetes. Because Kubernetes, in spite of its success, is too damn hard. It's hard. It's hard to manage using Kubernetes. It's hard using Kubernetes, but yet it's central to this whole cloud native stack. And I think we're going to see a lot of AI to manage Kubernetes. You mentioned the Commodore announcement, and that was more to, keep Kubernetes drift from setting in, because that happens, right? And, I don't know if that's using AI to do that, but I think we're going to see a lot of AI configuring Kubernetes and maintaining Kubernetes with the hope that it makes Kubernetes easier.
I think you're spot on, Alan. And we already saw some announcements leading into KubeCon. Dynatrace announced they have a Kubernetes component of their observability solution to help understand what's happening from the observability perspective into Kubernetes clusters. So I think we'll see AI coming in all areas. To your point, a lot of focus around how do we manage the complexity and how do we manage the sort of tall mountains things like Kubernetes.
Yep. Then clearly WASM, as you stated, Mitch, I think is going to be big. I think the important thing, or the nugget from that Ferryman Akamai announcement is, look, WASM is tailor-made for the edge, right? And Akamai, I know they're not just a CDN anymore, they're security, they're all of these great things, but they're really interested in having that edge presence, right? Lower latency, closest to the user. So I think, we'll see a lot of that WASM, or WASM everywhere. The other thing I think, and it goes to that chain guard announcement about, guarding the weakest link in virtual machines, is just like everywhere else we're seeing with cloud and JP, I'm sure you're probably seeing this, right? We are at a crossroads here where it's like a perfect storm. People are concerned about Broadcom VMware licensing changes, primarily cost, right? It could be up to a 3x difference in cost for your VMware. They're taking that as okay, this is a good time if I want to reevaluate. Do I want to run VMware on-prem the way I've been doing it? Is this the time I've been waiting for to move more to a public cloud? Still in a virtual hypervisor situation, right? But maybe not VMware hypervisor, or maybe I'm going right? Or going full cloud native.
So the really interesting thing, and I'm very, close as unfortunately Keith's not here today, but we're both very close to this VMware community. Mine goes back to working at EMC. I hear the biggest concern isn't so much the cost; it's the feeling that that the Broadcom acquisition has created a loss of innovation and support in the community around VMware. Now, where a lot of customers used to get their support for VMware was from the partners. Companies like EMC, which is now Dell, and other resellers of VMware. VMware was a very partner-centric, channel-centric company, very strong partner channel. That channel has been blown up. And so now there was relationships there. There was a, entire ecosystem that customers who are basing their huge infrastructure on VMware now don't have. It was taken away from those partners. They don't have the ability to provide that support in the way they did before. And to me, that is what is changing people's minds and making them rethink about what they do and where they go. And, another part of this whole aspect was VMware was heavily chasing the hypervisors, right? They had VMware on Azure, VMware on AWS. Those were big initiatives. And now, those customers are questioning, really, do I want to go this way? I don't think Broadcom is going to continue supporting these hypervisor approaches. So that is really what I think is changing minds more than just cost and licensing alone.
Fair enough. But, but the public cloud providers are giving people options. And again, one of those options is not just to move to the public cloud hypervisor, but to take this as the point where not only am I moving to the cloud, but I'm going to re-architect and go maybe to a microservices architecture and use Kubernetes and containers and go full on cloud native. Tracy, that's kind of right up your alley.
I think if you see a theme this year at KubeCon, it's going to be that, and the complexity that that adds to your infrastructure. Um, and I believe that you're going to see a lot more people with the title of platform engineer. Because what we're doing, and if you notice the pre-releases, as Mitch says, there's probably more to come, but at least the releases that we've gotten out up till now, you notice that they're all about, I hate to use the word to simplify them, but they're all about cleanup. In the past, we were how do we deploy containers? Now it's about securing containers. It's about making them it's easier to configure, manage drift. My goodness, we're finally going to get to talk about that. And when we talk about drift in just the platform engineering space, we're just talking about maybe a few containers that have different configurations. We don't even go down to containers that may have drift within the applications that they're running, serving the same people. So we haven't even gotten there yet. So I think that the theme is for this year is how do we start pushing it forward and cleaning up and fixing the issues that have held us back. And security is going to be a big one. I'm super happy to see that somebody's actually talking about, security in this space. The Armo article, I always find anything interesting that's trying to derive security from what's actually deployed, as opposed to what might be coming through the software supply chain and repos, because that becomes relevant. So I think it's going to be an interesting show because I think you're going to see a lot of messages about how do we make this complex environment easier and what kind of cleanup do we need to do.
Absolutely. I think there's another thing that we really should mention, and that is, KubeCon, Cloud Native Con it's the same, it's called both. It's the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is now managing 200 projects. And how do you, like the old woman who lived in the shoe, she had so many children, she didn't know what to do. How do you manage 200 projects and give each one of them the light of day that they require to grow and feed them and be healthy in one event like this?
So you're poking the bear here. You really are poking the bear. This is my complaint. I love the Linux Foundation, and the CNCF has really been a driver for open source in the realm of software and infrastructure. There's no doubt. But everybody wants to go where it's the most popular. And there are tools under the management of CNCF that probably should be in the CDF or the OpenSSF, but they want to be where everybody else goes. And I feel like it dilutes CNCF, and it dilutes the messaging around security and continuous delivery. So they don't manage them well. They don't get as much love and attention as Ortelius does from the CD Foundation, or even open source OpenSSF scorecard gets from the OpenSSF. So I think that it's they can't tell people where to put their open source projects, but I believe it's gotten big because people want to be part of the party, and I don't think it's beneficial to the consumer who's trying to sort all of this stuff out. Why would just because a particular piece of software runs in a Kubernetes environment, it doesn't mean anything except that it runs in a Kubernetes environment. It's really doing security, or it's really doing CD. So I think there's some problems there, to be quite honest.
Alan,
I've
we
always
talked
wondered
about
why
this.
Argo should have been in the CDF a long time ago.
Alan, we talked about this. I think it may have been Salt Lake at the KubeCon there last year, that KubeCon has become more of a general cloud computing conference. It's not really just cloud native, heavily focused on that. Yeah, there's a lot of that there. And that tends to happen with conferences. They kind of start to take on a life of their own. But I think that because of the projects, that's driving it too. The amount of projects that are being contributed to CNCF expand that focus. So, you can argue whether it's a good thing or bad thing. I think we'll probably end up in a day where here's the kind of cloud native track of it. Here's a different security track of it, or whatever AI track, whatever that might look like, which tends to be how these things evolve.
I don't disagree. I think there is a general cloud. Here's another thing I just want to call out is that I think they're expecting this to be the biggest cloud native or KubeCon, cloud native con, bigger than Paris even, right? Bigger than Amsterdam before that. Generally, over the last few years, the European editions of KubeCon have been bigger than their US counterparts, right? Next year's Cloud Native is in Atlanta. It'll be interesting to see. Or Cloud Native US is in Atlanta. We'll see how that goes. But they're expecting a record-breaking crowd here. So it'll be. I'm interested to see that as well. You mentioned platform engineering. From what my people at CNCF are telling me, on Tuesday is 0 day, right? All the projects have their own mini conferences, and then there's some conferences like around security, and some of the sister foundations have conferences, though those are more moved out now to other ones. But anyway, the platform engineering track mini conference on Tuesday is probably one of the most popular by registration and request tracks at 0 day for KubeCon this year. And of course, CNCF has rolled out platform engineering training and certification. So I do think platform engineering is going to be huge. I should mention our good friend Luca Galante will be there from platformengineering.org. Platformengineering.org is supposedly putting on some kind of killer party. I forget now if it's Monday night or Tuesday night, but it's quite the party. You could probably look it up there. But Luca and I and maybe Mitch and the rest of the Techstrong team, we're going to be doing a few of our platform engineering show podcasts, live or not live, but recorded at KubeCon. And of course, you can follow along on that on platformengineering.com. So you'll have DevOps.com content, Security Boulevard content, Cloud Native Now content, and platform engineering, as well as I'm sure Techstrong AI and Techstrong IT content coming out of KubeCon.
I do have a confession to make. I'm also going because they announced Jamie Foxx is going to be at the closing session.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
Trace, you had it.
How many people? What are they looking at? Like 12, 15,000 this year?
I think they're looking closer to 15 now.
Wow, that's amazing, because I think that, probably the largest one before was
12.
pushing 10.
No,
Yeah.
I thought Paris was close to 12.
And I don't think it's that big in North America, though, right?
No,
More like 7 or 8?
the last couple of years, Amsterdam, before Amsterdam was Valencia. But it certainly, Amsterdam, Paris, and now London have been bigger than their US counterparts, which have been, I think, Chicago, Salt Lake City, and now, as I said, Atlanta's coming up. And then I think LA after that. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, it's going to be a heck of a show. Mitchell will be there. I'll be there. We're not going to stream live from there because what we found is it's really early in North America when we stream live from KubeCon. And so what we'll probably do is record and play later that day. So you'll get sort of same day coverage, but not live.
Just go to Techstrong TV.
Techstrong.tv. And of course, it'll be on our daily Techstrong TV shows as well, including the gang. So that's it. That's a Cloud Native recap or promo or preview, whatever you want to call it, here on the gang. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about symbolic AI coming to DevOps. Stay tuned.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey everyone, back here on Techstrong Gang. So as I teased before the break, Imandra extends symbolic AI model to validate source code. You know, it's happening more and more. Tracy, you're up on this. Why don't you kick it off?
So isn't it something that after all these discussions about agentic AI and, everything that we're doing with LLMs, that we get to talk finally about the OG of AI?
The OG of AI.
Right, the OG of AI. I mean, this is original stuff. I smiled when I read this article because, back in 1995, Steve Taylor and I built a rules-based system to generate make files that turned into supporting 200 different build control file types like Ant. So I think, this speaks to the fact that we don't have to do agentic AI. We don't have to be pushing the envelope to take advantage of what AI can offer. Now, there's some questions I would have for them on this topic. When you have a rule-based system, it's a bit more rigid, and it struggles with what I would call kind of unstructured data, and it doesn't really learn. But in some cases, you really just don't need that. And it's something that's logic-based, is logic-based reasoning, is actually perfect for what they're doing. So I was excited to see it, and I'm glad to see that that the OG of AI is still being considered. And just like we never talk about, machine learning or ML workflows anymore. It's all about pretty much everybody wants to worry about agentic anymore. So we pass through these phases of new technology so quickly that sometimes we don't just look at what we have and what can be applied. And I applaud them for doing this.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, Tracy. It's like the first of all, I think that it's a lot of whitewashing going on. Agentic is whitewashing even more traditional forms of use of generative AI, which only makes the field more difficult to understand, especially when it's so confusing and all new right now, right? We saw this with the cloud. We've seen this with so many technologies, right? Everybody wants to be part of the party. Everybody wants to go to the party, right? So I'm an agent, but agent technology it's unfortunate that businesses are going to learn this the hard way. In fact, right before this, I posted on LinkedIn a whole post about companies are getting it wrong. They're selecting the wrong skill set to decide their AI strategy and why. And it gets to the root of what you said, which is AI is just, and I wish Keith was here because I'm stealing his nail gun analogy from one of his LinkedIn posts, but right, it's the newest nail gun, right? And now everybody wants the nail gun operator to run their company. I'm like, my analogy in the LinkedIn post is if you bought a beautiful plot of land and you're considering building a house on this plot of land, is your next call to the person who works the nail gun to run your project, construct your project? No, it's to a general contractor, right? But people don't realize this AI stuff, it's just the latest nail gun. What you really need is a general contractor still, because the general contractor has the knowledge on how to get the project done right. And what is strategy? What is governance? What does it mean to operationalize this? What does it mean to go into production? All that's being lost in the race, right? And, some prompt engineer is going to decide for a Fortune 500 company what its AI strategy is. Are you kidding me? Right? So, there's great stuff. Symbolic, neurosymbolic AI is phenomenal. It's great because if you think about everything we've learned about generative AI, right? All these words in sequence in a vector space is the happy dog, right? All that goes away. We take a lump of these and we just represent them by a symbol. Now I've reduced my entire vector space by 100x into these symbols. And now I can compare symbols so much faster with so much less overhead. And it holds such promise as a way to move forward and away from the brute force attack of, GPUs and multi-gigabyte vector spaces. Sorry.
No, you're all good.
Hey, can I actually, something that JP were saying that it's really interesting to me is that there's this land rush, right? There's this land rush for the AI mind share. I mean, you're going to see it in every conceivable conference. And sometimes I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. And I look at agentic AI in particular and almost a form of inflation with this product or this concept, right? So PwC makes an announcement last week. Alibaba, Baidu, Zendesk, fill in the blanks. Every conceivable company is doing something. And I begin to wonder, although it's impressive what all of these AI agents can do and conceivably where they'll take us and doing bigger and better things, I wonder if it's a bit overwhelming or even confusing to the IT decision makers. Like there's so much candy to choose from. It's in a sense, they're flooding the market with this miasma of AI agents. And it's, to me, I think it's kind of reached the oversaturation point. It's going to have to
it's
filter
like
its way
walking in
out.
a Las Vegas casino with all the lights going on those
Yes,
slot machines, and
exactly.
it's like sensory overload.
Well, the first thing
And
is,
can I just one more thing? You mentioned Las Vegas, Alan. That is so interesting because literally every week in Las Vegas, there is an AI conference dedicated to a company. And ServiceNow is going to do one, Zscaler, Informatica, Zendesk, what have you. It's Adobe. It's every week, and it's ridiculous. It's overkill.
So the interesting thing about the agentic AI problem space is it is a super complex distributed computing problem domain. I'd like to know where in the world all these people who weren't distributed computing experts 3 months ago are all of a sudden distributed computing experts able to build complex ecosystems of agents in an intelligent way when they haven't been able to do it for the last 30 years. I mean, I started with Corba. I started with DCE. I have 30 years of experience building complex distributed computing networks, and it's always a problem. So what? Somebody who started last week is going to have all that experience? Come on.
JP, Corba. So I'm having I don't know, flashbacks.
Deja vu.
Yeah, again, back to the nail gun, right? It's that knowledge, that experience that you need to drive this stuff. The LLM stuff, that's the new nail gun. If you let the person who understands how to work the nail gun build your complex network, you're going to crash and burn.
There was,
What's interesting to me about this announcement is, when you talk about programming languages and all the technologies that we work with, whether it's LLMs or COBOL, it's all symbolic. It's all math, right? That's what programming languages are. They're symbolic languages. If you took, and I suffered through a predicate logic class in college, that's what SQL's based on. That's what Prolog is based on. And so these programming languages have structures. You break them down to its primitives. Here's the syntax and what you can do with it. So it makes it a lot easier to take a model that understands each of the programming languages, their primitives and the variations of what you can do with it, and then apply where are the bugs, where are the things that we can fix. I'd like to see a Guinness Book of World Record or a contest at KubeCon or something. What's the most good bugs found versus false positive bugs found? Where there's security or just general bugs? Let's kind of put them to the test and see what does what, and let the winner be the winner.
But Tracy's point, what's getting lost is what these things do fundamentally well. And that is pattern recognition. They are essentially pattern recognition against NLP. I mean, that's what we have right now. That's what this generative AI, this attention-based AI engine really is. It's NLP for the most part in communication with it, but it's really deciphering patterns, right? And pattern
with a heavily weighted model. I mean, that's the transformer difference, yeah.
Right. But they pick up on things that humans totally missed, right? And that is the fun of it, right? If you put in like all the data for pharmaceuticals, right? And how they interact. This thing has found chemicals that no human has ever tried in the lab before, because it costs it nothing to try it. But also the fact that it has the ability to see across the space in a way that humans can't fathom the permutation. So I think that we are racing past the good juju for the hype.
So, but let me just get this straight, guys. You're acting surprised that the technology industry is not like a Pavlovian dog attracted to the shiny new trinket? Is that something new?
This
No,
is the first time
that's
it's
the
happened.
pattern, and that's why I exist, or
Yeah.
that's what I've done my whole career.
At our core, we're all gadget boys, right? Let's not forget it. And so there's something, I don't know if it's DNA, we could do the trading places. I don't know if it's in our DNA or it's the environment, but we've been trained to act like, Pavlovian dogs when someone says a shiny new trinket here. We all, get all happy.
Well,
And
there's an
We
impact.
like to tinker.
we
on
like
that.
to tinker, right? We're tinkerers. The tech industry is an industry of tinkerers.
Tinkers. But I think we
Tinkers.
have to remember that this, using symbolic AI is more reliable. I mean, that's what we're all saying. And remember that LLMs are just code too. So symbolic AI can be now the generators of LLMs.
Well, that's like the whole universe is in my thumbnail here, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, remember everything. So Tracy talked about building essentially a rule engine, right? Which goes back to the whole idea of, prologue and knowledge bases, right? Under the hood of all this is it's just trained by a knowledge base. And if there's garbage
It's a knowledge
base.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yep.
Of garbage.
Guys, we
For
got to
sure.
take a break. We're running a little behind, but we're going to come back with our C block. And John has a preview of some Intel news coming up. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. Hey, Monday today is going to be a big day, another big day for Intel. Their new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, is going to make his first public comments since he was appointed a couple of weeks ago and replaced Pat Gelsinger. And in a sense, I think what Mr. Tan is going to be facing is like an Indiana Jones moment. So he could swoop in and save this great American icon institution, which has tremendous assets, tremendous brand name, but has heavy baggage. Or things could fall apart and we could end up with yet another Intel CEO. I think we've had, not counting the interim CEOs, I think there have been 4 in about 7 years. So he's going to probably talk Monday afternoon, later today, about what he plans to do with the foundry business, which has been losing money but has a lot of potential. He might talk about even more job cuts, maybe cutting out the bloated workforce. There's been a lot of criticism, and Mr. Tan was one of the critics of Gelsinger. Tan left the board last year over disagreements over the company's bureaucratic, slow ways, its risk-averse culture, and its lagging AI strategy. So he is going to be outlining what we can expect. I think one of the things that might be interesting, and a touch point that I talked with the great Stephen Foskett about, was Stephen made a good point. He's going to be looking at what they do with the foundry business and any hint of maybe a potential partnership where Intel would join in funding a spinoff, maybe with the likes of TSMC, who've been named repeatedly as potential partners, AMD, who spun off their own global foundries business, I believe in 2009, NVIDIA, who would love to be a U.S. manufacturing partner, perhaps Apple, even Broadcom. In any sense, something dramatic has to happen. The stock has been down significantly. There are so many questions about this company. It's been around 57 years. It's like any big tech company, it's had its challenges. Apple went through a really bad patch. We'll see what happens. The stock has been up since Tan took over. He has very well respected from his days at Cadence and as a member of the Intel board. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what he has to say in about 45 minutes. I think will be this lengthened speech.
Do you think that he's going to break the company up, or is he going to keep it
No,
together?
I don't think he will. No, he's made it clear that he doesn't want to sell off the product side of things. But maybe they do something with the foundry business. I do not think they want to do that, but you know what? If things don't turn around, they may not have a choice.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is the US really needs Intel. They have to survive for us. They really do. We need Intel. And I worry about them because I know they took some money during the CHIPS Act. I don't think they've received it all.
No.
This
They
helped them.
haven't. No. Yeah,
No, but
it's
that-
they got the most.
Is there going to be money from the CHIPS Act? Because when you have an administration that wants to cut it just because it wasn't made by them, but by their predecessor, and cutting off your nose to spite your face, but it begs the bigger issue. I think an important thing of his speech here is to declare Intel's independence. They are not going to be dictated to by the U.S. government. Donald Trump doesn't get to play Gordon Gekko and sell this thing off by its parts. It's still Intel. This guy's still the CEO, and he's going to call the shot. Now, do you want to spin off the Foundry Group? There is a company called Foundry Group. It's my friend Brad Feld's company. But do you want to spin off the Foundry into a separate thing? The best partners for that are companies who are looking to develop their own silicon and will be its best customers. Right?
You know, so Tracy mentioned is a good, really interesting, important point is that Intel is the only American leading edge chip manufacturer. And Alan, to your point, Intel received nearly $8 billion through the CHIPS Act, which was, I believe, passed in 2022 by Congress. So we've talked about this before, but the administration cannot just willy-nilly come in and just decide, oh, that law that was passed, we're going to executive order it out.
John, if the courts don't enforce it, they could do whatever they want.
I think they will, though.
I hope so.
I do have faith in that, but that's another matter.
I think we might be able to use Steve Jobs as an analogy here. When he came back
Yes, exactly.
Essentially what Jobs did was, we're doing too many things. We're too defocused. Everybody was kind of doing their own pet projects, kill the Newton, kill that. Let's get back to our core. Let's really get back to what we do well, which is design great products, but also we have to upgrade our technology and bringing in Linux or Unix, for the operating system for the Mac OS. If you look at what Tan has said previously, he's telegraphed where he's going. He's saying, focus on manufacturing. Let's get back to our roots. Let's focus the culture back on that. Get rid of the overhead. That was part of his criticism of Zellginger. And really, they've got to start innovating again. I'm not saying they haven't innovated, but they haven't led innovation like they used to. And they've got to go back to their roots. So there'll be reductions, and there may be things sold off, but it's not going to be things that need to be core, that differentiate and provide their future going forward. I think that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, that's a really, really good comparison to Jobs, because I remember, way back in the day of the San Francisco Chronicle when this was all happening, and with Jobs, it's like, let's just go back. So at one point, Apple almost bought B from Jean-Louis Gasset, and then they ended up with Next. And remember Next? And Jobs looked at this product line that Gil Amelio had effed up. I wish I could use a profanity because Gil Amelio was a horrendous CEO. He was an enemy of mine. He ripped me in his book, by the way. So jobs like we're doing way too many things. Let's go back to what we do well, but let's also innovate and let's come up with some new ideas and simplify the product line. And I think, in a sense, I don't cover Intel as closely as I used to cover Apple, but it's like when you're trying to do too many things and you kind of lose your sight and lose your way, you need somebody who knows the DNA of the company, and he seems to come in and simplify things, clean things up, do your blocking and tackling at the most fundamental level, but then innovate as well, which is what they haven't done successfully for years.
It's in many regards. I've over the years, I've been shocked at like the positions that Intel's hiring for, and because it demonstrates like not their core business. Now I get they're trying to work on technologies that leverage their platform, and in addition to, because it helps them to better understand what they need to do, but they invested so much additional monies into these peripheral things that sit on top of the chip instead of focusing on the chip, right? And you can find those projects, as you said, throughout the company, and they ultimately ended up, I think, bleeding the company dry. So many positions, so many heads focused on technologies that are not of core strength to Intel.
Like their drones. They went down the path of drones like crazy, and I was like, "What are they doing with drones?" I mean, I realize drones need their chips, but do they really have to drive the chip market by enforcing it around particular technologies?
I remember the high-end AI GPU was it Falcon Shores that they ditched that. There was they hired the AMD's graphics chip engineer to develop a GPU which failed. They scrapped a multi-year project. Larrabee developed a standalone GPU like NVIDIA's back in 2009. I mean, the list goes on and on.
That's it. All right, guys. Well, look, I think all of us agree, though, we all want to see Intel succeed, right? Intel's success is, I think, all of our success. And that's a great way to end our first day of KubeCon Cloud Native Week here on Techstrong Gang. JP, I hope you're going to have a regular seat at the gang table here.
I'd love it. I enjoyed being part of it today and talking with all of you.
Well, when Mike Vizard's here, it's different because
Mike runs a tight ship, JP.
Yeah, he's no shimmy. He's no shimmy. But anyway, we took a little liberty.
If Alan moved to Vegas, he'd be the next Oscar Goldman.
Exactly. But we will be, tomorrow, Tuesday. Yeah, no, I think we'll be recording that one from London, Mitch and I and Mike and whoever else is, I guess, on board with the gang that day. But have a great week, everyone. Stay tuned. It's going to be cloud native everywhere. Tracy, looking good in this new camera. Love it. John, as always, keep up the great work. JP, great to have you here. Mitch, fish and chips for dinner, my friend.
There you go.
Have fun, you guys. Enjoy the week.
Have fun. Have a great time.
Bye-bye, everyone. We're out.